Ooh, testing. All right. A call to order here. And if everyone would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We go to a roll call.
Councilmember Kay.
Here.
Councilmember Stroman.
Here.
Councilmember Engel.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Walker. Here. Mayor Hagan.
Here. It looks like we have a presentation for Casey Silva tonight. Let me read something and we'll get it out to you here. This certificate is awarded to Casey Silva for exemplifying outstanding community spirit through her consistently volunteering to coach various recreational sport teams, actively supporting the youth of the community through her classroom involvement, and generously offering her time to help, help others. Her dedication to local businesses and unwavering community engagement make her a deserving recipient of the Citizen of the Month honor. Would you want to come up here? We can give you an award.
Very much. No problem. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
That's something that we should all strive to do, so I really appreciate seeing you do stuff for our youth. It's very important, so thank you.
Can I say one thing? You know me, I'll just
Yeah, absolutely.
come to the mic.
Yeah, safety thing.
I'll be quick because we know I can talk a lot, but I just appreciate coming into this community and that it's something that is done frequently by a lot of people. So it was nice. I came in to just meet people, and it's really cool that we have a lot of others. So I love that we're doing this, and I hope that everyone else will start getting involved as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I say something to Casey?
Yeah, absolutely.
Come on back up. So I realized that when you applied for the rec commission, it was kind of stepping out of your comfort zone. But really appreciate all the work that you're doing on the rec commission. And I mean, you're really putting yourself out there. And that's really what we like to see. And I encourage, as the mayor indicated, everybody should try to make an impact in the difference of a child's life. And you're doing it every day. So keep up the great work.
We're lucky we have a good community that does it, so I really appreciate it, and I'm grateful as well. So thank you.
Okay. So we're on to the consent calendar here. Anything that anyone wants to remove or put to a side? We'll take a motion.
Any public comment?
Oh, sorry, public comment. Gonna take a motion?
I'll move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. No nays? 5-0. Okay, we'll go on to staff communications and updates.
Okay, we have the monthly reports in the agenda package for your and the community's reference. And I will start over there if there are any additional updates.
At this time, for this meeting, the Finance Department doesn't have any additional reports. We have 2 presentations. We are still working on the audit and going forward with it. We had payroll today, and that went well. Everybody was, paid. And what else do we have? We have our new employees are doing well that have been onboarded. But other than that, I think our financial reports will be next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. To Chief?
In addition to what's in the staff report, we brought on a new reserve officer, Eric Maripau. He was sworn in last week. Plan on getting him sworn in at the official council meeting, possibly next council meeting. And then over the weekend, our officers assisted Stockton PD with Cinco de Mayo saturation patrols, and they had some of the highest stats of all the officers. Out of 128 traffic stops, Escalon did 33. Out of 95 citations, Escalon issued 28. And out of 28 vehicles towed, Escalon towed 11. And out of 4 arrests, 1 was from Escalon. So out of the 12 teams of people, Escalon represented.
Sounds like you were busy.
How many of those were Officer Palomino?
Palomino was there on Sunday, not Saturday, and I don't have Sunday stats yet.
Tell me.
Palomino, they were trying to start up a sideshow, so he got stuck closing down a street, so he wasn't able to be as proactive, is my understanding. And then on April 27th, there was a traffic collision on Highway 120 at Plaza. Alcohol was suspected to have been involved. The driver was seriously injured, and one of the passengers was deceased. So we did have a fatal TC on Highway 120 2 weeks ago.
That's terrible. Hopefully the family's doing all right. Is that all you have for us?
Yes.
Anything for Chief? Public Works?
Public Works doesn't have anything at this time, thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Public Works? All right. City Manager, you got anything?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I will just add or mention that we do put a disclaimer now on the front and top of our agenda, which speaks to the technology. We are now back in person, and while we offer virtual options for those who may not be able to participate, we don't want people to rely on those virtual options.
Hey, something's going glitchy.
Yeah, let's see, we have a caller who's not muted. We'll try to mute them.
Okay. I'd like to thank everyone for being patient. Last meeting obviously didn't go the way we wanted it to go, but I appreciate you hanging in there.
And so the disclaimer, the note, essentially, we will not rely on the technology. It's an added benefit for those who cannot participate in person, but really the meetings are in person, and we encourage those who want to participate to come in person. And so in essence, we'll continue meetings if we have some sort of technical glitch with technology. And then I will just mention that we are accepting nominations for Citizens of the Month, as we just saw, for really those people in the community who are going above and beyond the call of duty, so to speak, who are participative, who are helping out there in the community. So we do actively seek nominations for Citizen of the Month. And that's all I have today.
Okay, any questions for staff from the audience? No? Any questions online for the audience? From the audience, sorry, for staff? Okay. All righty then, we'll go to matters presented from the audience. The public may address the city council on any item that is on the agenda at the time the item is called. The public may also address the city council on any item not on the agenda that is within the subject matter of the city of Escalon. Each speaker is limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. Unused time may not be yielded to another speaker. You may state your name and address for the record. However, it is not required. Due to state law, action will not be taken on any item that is not on the agenda, and except for brief responses, the council is prohibited from discussing any item not on the agenda. If it requires action, it will be referred to staff and/or placed on the future agenda. The determination of whether an item is within the subject matter of the city is a discretionary decision made by the mayor. At this time, do we have any matters from the audience? No? Any online? Okay, well, we'll go to the public hearing, number 6.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Not too often we have no public comments. So Jalen French, city staff. The item before you is a public hearing, and it is the first of a two-step process to consider a proposed development project. The project applicant, who is here with us today, Gurmat Lyons, purchased the less than an acre, 0.89 acre property located at the northeast corner of Jackson Avenue, SR 120, and Elizabeth, and is proposing to construct a mixed-use development, so multiple uses, consisting of 17 apartment units and 2 900-square-foot commercial pads in 2 two-story buildings. The reason primarily it's before you today is a rezone portion. The site is currently zoned C2, community commercial, which per our code allows for, and I quote, a wide variety of retail service, entertainment, and administrative activities. So if we can pull up the presentation. 1 second. Second slide there. So that's perfect. So little history. Zoning was established in the early 1900s to separate potentially conflicting uses like factories, adjacent to residential or school uses. And so now, 100 years later or more, you see on the map here, this is what our zoning map looks like. You see the different colors represent different land uses. The light yellow, which you see a predominant of, is low-density residential or single-family homes. The red, mostly along the major corridors, McHenry and 120, is commercial uses. It's because you want more access to the commercial uses for travelers or big roads. The big blue blobs are municipal-type uses, schools, city halls, that type of thing. So each color represents a use. The action tonight is to consider the project as well as considering potentially changing the color of the parcel. So if we go to the next slide, you can see a zoom in here, northeast corner of Jackson and 120. That it's currently zoned commercial, adjacent to residential on the north side and on the south side. So per the city's zoning code, multifamily residential, or apartments in this case, are permitted within the C2 zone, subject to a preliminary development plan. This was adopted, that kind of provision was adopted via ordinance in 2010. So multifamily is allowed in the C2 zone with a preliminary development plan or a planned development. So again, the item before you is a rezone. A rezone requires an ordinance and 2 readings of the item. So if approved today, there will be a second reading, and then it will take effect 30 days thereafter. A PD, a planned development, is actually a different zone classification. It's a different type that doesn't fall exactly within the designated zones that we have: commercial, single-family residential, multifamily residential, those. So while multifamily residential is permitted, again, it's only permitted with a planned development, which in essence is a rezone. And I'll just speak to the actual steps of the planned development, and I'll read these from the code. A completed application for a PD zone classification is submitted to the planning department. including development plans, supportive materials, and environmental documentation. Staff then reviews that material for completeness, compliance with applicable requirements, and adequacy of project design and conformance with the purpose of the PD zone. Then, upon completion of this review and preparation of this chapter with performance standards, so we make recommendations, the application and preliminary development plan shall be submitted to the Planning Commission for review at a public hearing. This was held on March 11th. From the Planning Commission, the matter shall be forwarded to the City Council, where we are today, to ensure it's applicable with codes and ordinances. Then, the City Council shall review the matter at a public hearing, again today, and as the deciding body may adopt the PD. So that's kind of the background, a little bit on zoning and the process. So the actual project itself, I mentioned, but 2 900 square foot commercial pads, and then into the 17 units, there are 4 1-bedroom, 1-bath units of about 850 square feet, 2 2-bedroom, 2-bath units of a little over 1,000 square feet, 10 2-bedroom, 2-bath units of 937 square feet, and 1 3-bedroom, 2-bath units of 1,100 square feet. The project is also proposing a 2,600 square foot common area, which has a seating area, pergola, and a play structure, and some grass. The project is also proposing 42 parking spaces, which is the requirement per city code. That includes 8 spaces for the commercial pieces, as well as 34 for the residential, including 15 covered parking spaces under the building, under the second story of the building, and 19 open parking spaces. So it does meet the parking requirement. Density is calculated about 19 units per acre. This is equivalent or within the range of an R3 zone, which you typically see multifamily. So R3 is the most dense residential zone city has. The R3 zone calls for a minimum of 15 units per acre and a maximum of 29. Again, this comes in at 19. Just another thought here, feature of the city's inclusionary housing ordinance. 2 of the units, so between 10 and 15% of a project, will be required to be affordable. So 2 of the units will be restricted affordable. The developer has not yet determined if these will be for lower income, between 30 and 80% of the area median income, or at the higher end, between 80 and 120% of the area median income. So the state determines what the area median income is through census data and other data, and then we have to ensure that the units are affordable for anyone within that range. We would propose in this case that they work with a group, unless they're going to take it on, but they work with a group to ensure that those units are affordable per the requirements of the ordinance. So that's one condition that I just mentioned. Another condition is screening of the 2-story buildings from adjacent homes. The project applicant's response on this has been they have located the building as far away as possible from the existing homes. It's about 40 feet, and they are proposing a 10-foot masonry wall. They are also including screening landscaping, so tall vegetation to screen. And then they're only including 1 window and no decks that are facing the existing homes. We are also requiring that they maintain in perpetuity property management on the site so that the project doesn't deteriorate. It's continually being maintained and invested in through this property management company to alleviate some of the concerns associated with apartment projects periodically. There have been a couple of meetings, 3 meetings on this. One of them, the first one was back in November. So on November 9th, there was a community workshop held, which was a long time ago now, but was held in the library. There were about 8 people maybe in attendance, not too heavily attended. More recently, of course, just last month, the city council held a community workshop here prior to the council meeting to talk about this, and we did receive several community comments at that time. And then 2 months ago, in March 11th, the Planning Commission held a meeting. I mentioned, or maybe I didn't, but the Planning Commission did at their March 11th meeting, of course, accept public testimony and hear that public testimony. They did vote on a 2-to-1 vote to not recommend approval, so recommend denial to the city council. You don't normally see 3 members. I will share with you why there were 3 members. One had recently resigned, moved out of town in January. He had resigned, so about a month and a half before this meeting. And then another one had a planned vacation and could not make it. So you did have 3 members of the commission at that time. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that the council or the public may have on this. We also are joined by the project proponent. Here's who is here in the first row, as well as their architect, Mark Lee, who is online virtually. And I'm sure they will want to say something at some point.
Okay, any takers up here?
I have a quick question. Staff, was this project presented to Caltrans?
Yes, Caltrans did comment on the project.
What were Caltrans's comments? Specifically, traffic along Highway 120?
Yeah. No direct concern about traffic on 120. They wanted to ensure that the ingress egress off 120 did not back up into or impede any way the traffic flow on the state highway.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Any other questions? I think we've already heard from the public, right?
No, we'll open it up for
Okay.
the public.
With the special meeting?
Yeah, well, that was an additional opportunity for
Right,
them.
okay,
This
I
is a
got you.
public hearing and we'll.
So we'll be able to open up, okay. Does the public want to speak?
Open the public hearing.
Yeah, open the public.
We're opening up the public comment?
And maybe we start with the project proponent.
Okay. Is it PJ? Is that right?
Yeah, I believe Mark is going to be.
Okay, Mark?
He'll unmute himself.
Did PJ want to give any kind of presentation at all? Can you, can you hear me? Well, I'm, okay. I mean, if you wanted to present what the project is and your involvement, that's fine. But I'll be glad to go through the project itself. My name is Mark Lee. I'm president of Lee Jago Architecture. I'd like to thank you for allowing me to present this project and explain the design and the potential benefits to the community. Throughout the U.S., and I think especially in California, we have a housing shortage of all types and needs. This includes single-family, multifamily houses, and apartments. This has been documented in all kinds of forms of media. There are mandated regulations from the state of California to all cities within the state to promote the development of all types of housing. This helps fulfill the demands of housing for varying income groups and levels of our residents. There are various types of housings, single-family homes, that's family-oriented, 2 and 3, generally 3 and 4 bedroom homes with attached garages. The density is generally from 1 to 12 units to the acre. Multifamily housing and townhomes, condominiums are also family-oriented, with a little tighter density of 12 to 18. Apartments such as we're proposing are generally 17 to 20 units per acre, 2-story projects, and upwards to maybe 30 units for 3-story. The proposed market rate apartments that we are presenting are 19.1 units to the acre and are termed garden apartments mainly because of their more heavily landscaped. An apartment project addresses the needs of young adults looking for the first place from their parents' home, young couples trying to save money to purchase homes, singles or couples looking for a place that's budgeted to their income, separated individuals or divorced individuals, or older folks looking to simplify or downsize from their previous residence. This project is offering that opportunity for those individuals who need it. To deny this opportunity is to ignore the needs of your community. The inability to provide local housing for residents either pushes them out further or causes longer commutes and diminishes the population-based need for local employment. It's important to understand that single-family housing, townhouses, and multifamily housing can also be rental properties, just like apartments, but generally at a higher rate. There are many positives to this project. It is a mixed-use project on a main arterial street, close to easy access to other commercial uses, the gas station, and the food services that's across the street. The location limits auto traffic winding through the residential areas. Residents are more likely to walk or bike to these services rather than using their automobile, lessening the daily trips associated with housing or other uses. There's more eyes on the street to reduce crime associated with businesses limited with limited operation times. Crime is 45% higher in commercial areas than residential areas, as quoted by a study of the University of Pennsylvania Law Review. There's a misconception that apartments lower the value of the surrounding area, but per the study by Harvard University Joint Center of Law Review, found that to be the opposite. It not only upgrades the value of the surrounding area, but disproportionately pays more in tax rates than single-family homes in relationship to community services. The project proposes 4 one-bedrooms, 12 two-bedrooms, and 1 three-bedroom studies, and as per the studies done by the Environmental Protection Agency, apartments daily use the least number of daily trips compared to any other use. Residents of these units typically have 25 to 50% less automobile traffic trips than single-family homes. It's a result of singles and couples, usually without children, both working and not using their automobile during the day as much as families do. Commercial uses are 4 times the traffic volume, and gas stations are 10 times the use of the amount of traffic volume. If those other uses are provided, that means there would be a greater traffic congestion, noise, and pollution than what we're presenting. The same EPA study found that the parking needs for an apartment on an average is an average of 1.3 to 1.6 spaces per unit, and we're providing 2.0 spaces per unit, which allows for ample parking of guests. The entry into the project from Jackson Avenue was designed per Caltrans standards and reviewed by the traffic division to their satisfaction. It's called a pork chop design, and when you bring it up, you can see how it works. But essentially to minimize and prevent left-hand turn ingress and egress from Jackson Avenue onto the site. The final design will be submitted to them during the building permit phase for their approval. The document was provided to the planning department for the fire truck radiuses. This is also to be reviewed by the fire district for compliance during the building permit application. The design being presented is residential in character. There are many different materials on the elevation from character. The mass is broken into smaller elements to avoid building from being overpowering. It is all purposely oriented towards Elizabeth Avenue or the vacant lot to minimize views to the neighbor yards. There's only one window that is projected to view onto the adjacent neighbors, and we'd be willing to have this condition to either have more trees planted or obscure glass provided. Gathering areas set between the 2 buildings, not against any neighborhood homes to minimize noise. In conclusion, the developer wants to and is willing to work with the community to address any concerns that they may have. If this is a good project and is designed to minimize the impact on the surrounding area or than any other potential use, it's important that we meet the needs necessary for the residents of this community. Thank you.
PJ, did your group want to talk?
Just to go after a little bit what Mark was saying, our architect, about the project. I discussed it before as well in our community workshop. the first meeting as well, not everyone that's coming into Escalon can always afford a home, right? People still want to move here, they still want to work here. So the next step over are apartments. People rent out single-family houses all the time. People rent out apartments all the time, right? If you go on Zillow.com right now, you can only find about 2 rentals in Escalon. That's not much. So there is 1 3-bedroom in there. You can say that's going to be 1 full family in there, but everything else is a 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom units in there. It's usually couples, single people, elderly people, people that are kind of, have a job. They're going to be working in Escalon or most likely outside of Escalon. When this came to everything else, we, like Mark was saying, we're willing to work with the residents on whether it's more privacy for the neighboring homeowners on the right behind, or for people coming in and out of the property as well. And like I said, Orlando's next door, they're 24 hours. People are coming in and out constantly, right? At least with apartments, I understand you're gonna have people coming in and out, but it'll be more so during designated times. Not saying people won't be coming in during the day at all, we can't predict that, but when it comes to inflow and outflow of traffic, it's gonna be a lot less than any other commercial project on that property. And lastly, like I said, every city in California is facing a housing crisis, and we thought putting this project up there with some commercial would help with that. And hopefully, having this project there would help accomplish that.
Thank you, excuse me, thank you for your time. Public? Would anyone from the public like to speak? Just so you're aware, I think they get 5 minutes, right? 5 minutes.
I thought it was 3, so. Whew. All right, hi you guys. My name is Renee Snow, 2125 California Street. I'm here to express my strong opposition to the proposed housing development in our neighborhood. While I understand the concern for need for affordable housing in our city, I believe this project would have a detrimental impact on our neighborhood and community. First and foremost, the proposed development is simply too large for the desired location. The increased population density would expose many residents of the dangerous Highway 120 that it sits on the corner of. There are many locally enjoyed businesses directly across the highway, and the crosswalk leading to them from the northern side of the highway is not directly connected to the new complex. This puts many lives in danger. While this crosswalk is great in theory, it creates a false sense of security for pedestrians and will not always be sufficient on high-volume roadways such as 120. Increased residents looking to patronize businesses across from their home are not safe crossing this road. Pedestrian fatalities are disproportionately high at highway crossings compared to the other areas, growing up from 12% from 2022. The posted speed limit in front of the future complex is 30 miles per hour. Vehicles headed eastbound are likely to be accelerating above this, preparing for the 55 mile per hour speed limit just a few yards ahead as the 120 becomes a rural highway again. The fatality rate in pedestrian versus vehicle accidents at 30 to 35 miles per hour is 90%, jumping up to 99% at 55 miles per hour. Not even mentioning the severe injury rates. Escalon has seen far too many losses of life on this busy highway, and I, for one, do not want to set us up to lose more precious lives. We are not a large city. Escalon will never be the next up-and-coming San Jose or Sacramento. We don't want to be like Modesto and Manteca. We are not looking to expand in a way that moves our town to create spaces for a bustling, quickly growing population. We are Escalon. We are a small, close-knit community that watches out for our neighbors and pays attention to things that could affect everybody in the family town negatively. After renting in Escalon for several years, my husband and I chose to purchase our home here. I did not expand my search to Oakdale, Riverbank, or Modesto, where we would have gotten double the house for the price we paid. We wanted to continue raising our children in a safe, close-knit town. When I'm driving down the street, people recognize me for my big red truck and wave, or people shout out, "Hey, taco lady." Or when someone in my community tell me that they have met my sons and what good gentlemen they are. I'm not against expansion as our humble little town grows, but adding dense populations in high traffic areas is not a safe way to go about this. The developer is simply here to make their money and move on. The lasting effects that this could have on our town and its individuals is not their concern. Historically, housing such as this can generate more profit for the developer than it can create revenue for the city. This is being proposed as a family-style complex, yet there are only a handful of the units larger than 1 bedroom. There is only going to be 1 3-bedroom apartment available. This is not family-friendly. And furthermore, why would anyone want family units to be placed at such a dangerous location? It is a privilege to live in Escalon. No one has the right to live here. I would love to live on the Pacific Beach in San Diego, but I can't afford it. I can't go to San Diego City Council and expect them to help me find a home. So what we did is worked hard until we were able to afford the home that we have. When we submitted the petition today, Celinda Bickner replied questioning the amount of people not from Escalon, calling it odd. The truth is, the majority of people not listed as Escalon residents is incorrect. For example, it shows me and several neighbors as living in Stockton, Sacramento, and Riverbank. When I called to get an answer for this, it's where you signed it online. It shows that that's your location. I'm asking that the City Council, on behalf of myself and the over 200 signatures of Escalon residents that I have collected, to deny this request to rezone this area for residential apartments. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Can I ask for a question?
Yep, oh, we have a question for you
I do.
from the dais.
No, I mean, it's not a personal question. So the petition,
Yes.
yes, thank you, by the way,
Okay.
for doing that. Do you have the verbiage that led up to the signature, like what everybody was signing?
Sure. You want me to read it to you?
I mean,
Like
maybe-
what the statement said on it?
Yeah, because, I mean, right now, all I have is like a list of names. I would love to see what that people were told to then sign the petition to know what they were signing.
Mayor, if you could just remind the audience to not save their whistles and claps and stuff so we can get through all the comment. Or boos or hisses or whatever your particular persuasion is.
Well, try your best not to have emotional responses as best you can.
You can be emotional, just be silent.
Sorry, guys, the internet's not, it's like kind of having a blockage here. This isn't my phone. Let me see mine. Mine's in the holster right now. Yeah, it's like slowing down in here. If you look on the change.org, the petition, it'll pull up exactly what it says.
Renee,
Yeah?
could you just give us a minute, or could you go outside and, I would like it read into the public record.
Okay. Pause my time.
We'll change it on.
Or we can continue to take public testimony while you
I would
pull
do
it up.
that.
Anyone else like to speak while we're waiting? You got, oh, hold on.
As a longstanding resident of our beloved neighborhood, I am disheartened to witness potential changes that could harm the character and stability of our community. A proposal has been made to build an apartment complex within our neighborhood, a decision that would risk our town's unique charm and amicable atmosphere. To protect our community, we must voice our concern, one of which is potential influx of traffic. Given that most apartment dwellers own vehicles, the congestion in our town could increase substantially, making the quiet streets we appreciate more busier and noisier. Let us remember, the neighborhoods are built on a sense of community, not buildings. This proposed apartment complex threatens to disrupt that truth and can make our neighborhood unrecognizable in the process. It is crucial that we demonstrate our shared concern to local authorities by signing this petition. I implore you, not merely as a fellow resident, but as a friend and neighbor, to join me in resisting this development. Be a voice of change in community preservation and sign this petition. Together, we can ensure that our neighborhood remains a place of tranquility and community fellowship. Please sign this petition to halt the construction of apartment complex in our neighborhood.
Thank you.
Welcome. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I believe there was a, back in the back there, wanted to say something? So Cheryl.
Hi. My name is Cheryl Schultz. I live in Escalon on Jessica Circle. I am the daughter-in-law of William Edward Schultz. He served on the planning committee back in the 1990s. I know that's a long time ago, but he was an advocate for keeping our town small and quaint. I'm here to voice my family's concern. We do not want an apartment complex, I hate to say it, eyesore. We feel this could lower our property value. I know was it Mark? He said he doesn't feel that that would happen. Let's see. An apartment complex is going to create traffic and congestion. We do have that petition, which has actually over 320 signatures. I hope that you all take that into consideration. There are people from all over town. We do feel for the tenants' safety and the access to the businesses across the street from the development. There's just the blinking yellow light, and there's going to be possibly teenagers there. They're wanting to get across the street to Hula's, to Bonnie's, the Waffle House. I just feel that the traffic does not always stop for the blinking yellow light. So, I'm hoping that a stoplight would get put in at some point. And I know Caltrans is very hard to work with. We do value the charm of our town and the quiet atmosphere. I also feel that crime will increase in our little town. Sorry, I'm nervous. We would like more explanation on the pork chop feature. I understand you can only turn right back into town. Is that correct?
Yes.
So how do you get going to the hills and Oakdale and so forth? Do you go somewhere and
You'd have to come out onto Elizabeth and then take a left turn.
left and back up to the highway?
Back up the
Okay.
highway, yes.
All righty. Well, anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else that would like to speak? Yes?
Linda Gentry, 1665 Jerry Avenue. And I was up here and spoke last time, and I was just concerned about commercial and units being adjacent to each other. That's one thing. And then, as I understood it from last time, both the entry, because you can't be on the highway, both the entry for the units and commercial, whatever commercial in there, would be the same entry. Is that correct, or it would be the same? So I think there's a lot, there'd be people going to the commercial in there, people going on the units in there, and it could be family ones, and then all the kind of, on the street right there, going in and out for both things. And then plus right across the street, you've got Orlando's, which is open 24 hours. And, that's kind of with families being in there and just kids going across the street, whatever, and being open like that. It just doesn't seem like a good environment to me. And I did say about I didn't mind if it was either a unit maybe or the commercial, but not both. That's my comment on it. And I still feel the same as when I was up last time. So I think that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? No, going once, okay. We have one more.
Answer us.
Betsy. I also live in Escalon, around the corner from the project. My question, you asked about Caltrans. Has Escalon Fire had anything to say about this project?
Yeah, they were here last meeting. Unfortunately, they could not make it today. But yes, they have weighed in originally, and then they weighed in on the pork chop comment that was provided by the Planning Commission about fire's ability to turn into and access the property at 120. We do have an exhibit from them that says their rig, their truck, can get in even with the pork chop and can get out and around through Elizabeth and 120. So yes, they have.
They would have to go up and like make a U-turn, because, you know, the fire department is here. This project is here, so they would have to go past it or turn left. And then can they make the turn? If they did turn left at Orlando's, could the fire truck make that turn? Or was that asked?
Yeah. Both ingress and egress, in and out of Elizabeth and 120, they said was possible.
The fire truck can make that.
Yep.
And then have you all been made aware of all the comments that the Planning Commission made? Because they had a lot of concerns. So I was just wondering if you knew everything that they said.
Yeah, the comments were summarized in the agenda item, and then the full minutes of the Planning Commission meeting are included in the packet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, well, anyone online? No? I'll bring it back to the dais. Anyone like to
I'll go
say
first.
anything?
I'll go first. What the hell? First of all, we received an email from Carol Dunbar that has raised 4 questions, and I would like to address her concerns regarding the 4 questions. So question number 1 is about the number of parking. Actually, questions 1 and 2 are related to parking. Staff, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the parking values are specified in the Escalon Municipal Code.
Correct.
Period. And so if people disagree with the amount of calculation with the number of parking spaces, we can certainly ask staff to look at that, but it's not like we're pulling these parking numbers out of somewhere. I understand her concern about traffic onto Highway 120. That's a very valid concern. And number 4 is something we're hearing a lot, and that is the amount of speeding, both eastbound and westbound on Highway 120. I think it's really important for the community to know that the city and the city council, we can only do so much with Highway 120. I would really like to request folks that have an issue with speeding to please reach out to Caltrans, help us. I mean, if you need contact information, who to contact at Caltrans, staff can provide that information. I think it's really, really helpful, and you can help us. Because we drive Highway 120 just like you all. To the applicant, PJ, if I can be candid with you, I'm a little pissed off. And the reason that I'm pissed off is because there have been 3 community meetings. You've heard what our residents say, and nothing's been changed. And they've asked you to concede issues with parking. They've asked you to consider this. They've asked you to consider that. Nothing's been done. And to me, if I'm truly representing the community of Escalon, what have you guys done to at least try to meet some of our residents and their concerns? And when I read this, honestly, I don't think anything's been done, period, since that very first meeting. And honestly, that upsets me because our folks are coming to the community. I mean, they've come to 3 meetings and you heard what they're saying, but nothing's been done. I don't know if that's gambling. I don't know what the reason for it, but that upsets me. I just would like to state publicly that there has been an incredible amount of misinformation that's been spread about this project. I've heard it's going to be all affordable housing. I've heard it's going to be low-income housing. I've heard that people are going to be parking in Orlando's and along Elizabeth. I mean, I've heard every reason why this project should not move forward. And quite honestly, most of it is not accurate information. However, this council made a decision to focus on economic development. That was a huge push that this council has decided. In my opinion, again, I'm not speaking for the other council members, speaking purely for myself, an R3 residential project does not belong in a residential zone or in a commercial zone, period. The amount of tax revenue, sales tax revenue, that 2 900 square foot commercial spaces would bring to the city of Escalon is not enough, in my opinion. And so there's just too many what ifs. And last but certainly not least, I just want to say to the community members that took the time to sign the petition, just remember your voice matters. Thank you.
Anyone else on the dais like to speak?
I'll go next. Looking at the architecture of it, I think that it's a very aesthetically pleasing building. Definitely do. I like the idea of the commercial front that you have on it, even with the apartments in the back of it. However, on 120, I'm just going to be completely frank that I just don't think that is a good option for our commercial space. As Sean stated, our focus is economic development in this city. While housing is extremely important, and I would love to see an apartment complex be built here, honestly, we need it. I just don't think that location is right for the city, and rezoning it while we're only going to be gaining 2 commercial pads out of it, that unfortunately would likely end up being another hair salon or nail salon, that sort of thing that doesn't create tax revenue. What it would do is it would put essentially a 2.5, 3-story tall building blocking the view of everything driving through town. Where, Michelle, if you don't mind, would you go up to slide 3 on this? Up 2 more. This is 2304. Who is going to want to develop 2350 and 2390 and 2480 when it's at that point being detached from everything in the city that would be a tax revenue creating business? With economic development being, our strongest concern as a city and increasing sales tax in the city, I just don't think that this is a wise decision for this council to make.
Okay. On the left side, any takers? Anyone want to speak?
First?
No, ladies first, please.
Okay. Yeah, so first I'll address the fact that the high density or more housing in Escalon is a need. And whether it is for our kids that are coming back to try and live here, there's no smaller units for them to start their life here, or young families trying to start their life here. There's not very much available. And so we're having an issue in Escalon right now where, we're having a lot of out-of-towners come in to buy property, which I love and I welcome, but it's very difficult for the people who grew up in Escalon, who are growing up, to come back and start their lives here. It's not only needed for our citizens and for us to have a younger community members coming in and starting their lives here and keep our community going. But also we need those developed by private investors. And this is not a Section 8 housing development. This is a private housing development. And so I'm very grateful for that, because I'm not wanting the state of California to say Escalon is not growing, we have lots of space, and they are going to come in. We don't want that to happen. We don't want the state to say, we're going to place these. We want private developers to do a nice job, and I agree with Councilor Kay, it's very aesthetically pleasing. So going forward in Escalon, I mean, I would look towards and just give the community a heads up. I would expect more development, more developers, private developers to come in, and I wouldn't necessarily push them away, because the alternative down the line is not better. And if we can find someone to be partners with us and have that development with our community in mind, in my opinion, that's what you want to look towards. However, I do happen to agree with, my opinion has been this since I've seen this plan, but I agree with Caltrans, and I am concerned about the ingress and egress at this location coming right off of Highway 120, looking for that backup. And not only that, that's the ingress to the commercial as well as the apartments. And I am concerned for people who are parking to go to the commercial and then other cars coming in to go home, to go to their apartments. I am very concerned about this location's traffic. And so, yeah, the jurisdiction of Highway 120 is not the city of Escalon, it is Caltrans. We have come to Caltrans asking for, we have asked for different traffic controls in that spot even before this development, and we're hoping that that has some traction, but so far it hasn't. That crossing is dangerous. People don't stop there already without more development. We've suggested the Hawk system, we've suggested light systems, we've suggested some things. Caltrans is doing what Caltrans does. We did upgrade the light. I still don't think it's good enough to have people who are trying to cross going to the, whether they're going to Damani's and that development, or whether it's people that are crossing the other way and going home for the day, and kids crossing that. That's my number one concern. And again, beautiful development. I think the location is right there on 120 with the commercial mixed is risky. So that's my opinion.
Councilmember Engel?
Sure. Sorry, getting over a cold. You'll have to bear with me a little bit there. So the way that I see it is the community has three choices. We keep it a dirt lot, we allow this project, or we wait for a commercial project. The recurring theme seems to be poised around pedestrian and traffic safety. All of these lots that we see along Jackson, 2304, 2350, 2390, as those are developed, that's just going to increase that. If we're planning on developing that, that's something that we're going to need to address sooner rather than later, because traffic is not going to decrease by adding businesses. Since being, with the city on planning commission or city council, I haven't seen a project come through yet that hasn't been fairly heavily contested. And I think there's definitely two sides to every story, or three sides in that matter, right? In this instance, I think leaving it a dirt lot is a waste. I think waiting for a commercial development is going to highly increase the traffic count. If we're concerned about pedestrian and vehicle safety, if we were to put a fast food restaurant in there or a strip mall that had several individual shops, we're talking traffic all day long, every day. Apartments, do I love apartments? No, not necessarily, but I do know that Escalon needs a housing element addressed, and we need some commercial development, and this project mildly addresses both. I think that it looks nice for what it is for being in an apartment. There's not a lot of infill left. There's that lot that's been on the market on the other side of the doctor's office for a year, about that, asking about $1 million. No takers, no bites. What about Irwin? I mean, that's another potential infill lot. Has anybody purchased that?
We have had initial conversations with the owner about potential development.
Potential development, so was there a new, it looked like the sign was still up. Has somebody purchased it, or is that in a conversation that's being had to judge whether a purchase is going to be made?
I get the sense that this buyer's had it for some time, local, and they're interested in some sort of residential project.
Please.
Friends of ours actually own that property, and they owned it like their whole life. It was his father's property, and they.
The Irwin, I'm sorry, for the Irwin property? I'm
sorry?
For the Irwin property or for this corner?
Here, come up here and
The Schultz, the one
address the
is
question.
that the property you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think from what I understand, they said that a lot of people are waiting to see what's going to happen next door. So I do know that they have it listed, but even they're kind of like, is kind of in a hold to see what happens here.
Sure.
So I know that they came, they're not here today, but I know they came to the other two meetings. But, so they're just, I think that's kind of, that sell is kind of, people are waiting to see what's going to happen on that one.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, my response was on Irwin. I thought you had moved to Irwin. My response was on the Irwin property.
Yeah, it was. I was just speaking in general about infill lots and what we're doing with them. I mean, I think regardless of what happens with any of those properties, if 2350 is not for sale, we're talking about a CMU wall that's going to divide, and potentially any of those lots that split or that develop are going to have that same restriction. The thought of all of those lots being sold at the same time, developed and wide open to parking, is slim to none. It really is. It's not huge growth. It's small and moderate growth, in my opinion, that meets two of our needs. I like the project. I'm in the minority. I hear that, but I figured I at least had to vocalize what my opinion was.
Thank you, Councilman Engel. Well, I guess it's me left. As far as addressing PG, I appreciate your time coming in. I know you put a lot of effort into this project. My personal take is I would love to see this be commercial. I think the location is just wrong. I know we need housing, but if it was in a different location of town, you'd probably have me on board. But this location, unfortunately, is, in my opinion, part of our business element. And so I would love to see you keep working with us. I know it's a tough pill to swallow kind of scenario, but I'd love to see you keep working with us and put something commercial there. I really would, like a Mister's or something like that. You know, it doesn't have to be a sales tax if it helps amenities in town. You know, sometimes you have businesses that are here for the quality of life, and sometimes it's there for the sales tax.
Mr. Mayor, can I add one thing while we're talking about that? So for the residents that are here, is that something that's appealing to that neighborhood? A fast food restaurant or a car wash or another gas station? Is that?
We need to reopen the public hearing.
Mayor, we can't allow.
Yeah, hold on.
Oh.
It's part of the process, sorry.
I apologize, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, no problem. So I guess what I'm getting at is, I really don't want to be kicking dirt in your eye. I think that you're trying to invest in our town. I think that's an awesome thing, and I really want to see you successful in the long run. So, if you can bring us a project that's going to upgrade the quality of life here, heck, I'm on board. But I think this is one where there's too many elements that I just don't feel comfortable with. Some of them have been mentioned already. So I really don't want to keep, beating a dead horse. So that's where my opinion's at.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I'll move to deny the PD for the Planned Development Zone District for the development of a 2-story, 17-unit apartment building, including 1,800 square feet of service commercial space located at 2304 Jackson Avenue.
Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right, 4-1. Thank you for your time. We'll go on to number 7. Item number 7.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. We have the annual report, AB 2561, is a mandate from the state. It is to address open vacancies. It's not something that our town really has at this moment, but we are still required to produce this report. So it is interesting information in that it tells us what we have open. Assembly Bill 2561, it complies with the Brown Act and some additions that we had in January. So before we put forth a final budget, we have to address how many vacancies we have. And the state, their position is that some government agencies will hold positions open and not fill them and kind of save on their budgetary needs in that regard. We don't really have that problem. We have 3 open vacancies right now, and we hope to fill them. We have a police, a community service manager, and we have a office staff person. It was an accountant. We've absorbed most of that, and so we'll probably use that for something a little more specific later on down the road. Right now, this has no financial impact to us, other than we have to produce this report every year. No financial impact there. And so we will provide this probably every May, so that we have it before the budget as we're required to have. And it does give us some interesting information. We can list all the different titles that we have for the different bargaining units and how many vacancies we have. We generally will lose a person and then rehire them quite quickly because we don't have extra staff. We have staff that's required and needed. So this first one here is for GSU. There's 13 FTEs or full-time employees, and we have a pretty good rate there. And this is something that you'll see throughout this entire report for each one of the bargaining units. Our police unit, we just don't really hold that many vacancies. So this particular issue isn't something that affects Escalon at this time. And our very last slide, we're looking to our recruitment and retention efforts. The state would like to see what our efforts are. And so we have targeted advertising for our open positions when we have them. We try to do the compensation studies. Our benefits packages are really robust. Having worked for different areas, we have a very nice benefits package. We have a new post assistance or police officer recruitment for that retention and training and development of our staff. So we do try to use the resources that we have to retain trained staff. This last page kind of gives us a nice information about age brackets, how many vacancies we have, what the generation makeup is, and we can see we have quite a bit in the blue bar there, the Generation X, 21 employees. So at some point in time when our workforce ages out, we will have to replace quite a few people. Everybody retires, so something to think about for future. Does anyone have any questions?
And just to be clear, this is just a new law that requires this informational public hearing. There's no action for the council. So I would suggest that you can open the public hearing formally, Mayor.
Okay.
Make any public comment, close the public hearing, and then
Come back. Anyone from the public like to speak on this number 7? The AB 2561? No? All right, it'll come back to us. Anyone like to ask some questions? from finance?
Thanks for checking the box, staff.
That's about what it is. You're very welcome.
All right, so we don't need to make a motion.
No.
All right.
Can you repeat the 3 openings that we have?
Sure, we have a office staff person who was an accountant.
Okay.
We'll probably repurpose that for some other community, something that we actually need.
Okay.
We also have the community development manager that we are looking at for economic development, so that will be a key personnel. And we're really trying to find the right person for that. The other is a police officer, and I believe we are looking for one at the time of this report.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Is there continuous, recruitment for those positions? Thank you.
We do have a continuous recruitment right now for the community development manager. We don't have a recruitment out for the office staff because we're still really trying to figure out where to best spend the dollars for that person. And with our police, we do have a continuous for
Reserve officers.
the reserves, right? And then we pull from that reserve pool. So yes and no.
And just as, don't take offense to this, but is this person necessary, do you feel?
Staff has absorbed the additional position that is open now for finance, but it does leave a very slim staff. So going forward, trying to do other things like maybe contract development and things of that nature, there's other things that we would like to be doing. And so that's where that person would come in.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll just answer, we take that question very seriously. We don't want to just fill positions that don't need to be filled. As Celinda mentioned, we have not filled the accountant position. One, to see what the need is with the new finance director coming in, and two, where to position that. You know, maybe it's in a different part of the organization right now that we can use that FTE on. So the new finance director, Celinda's been here about a year. We're going through that assessment, and then when we determine what the need is, we can fill it then.
If there's a need, correct?
If there's a need.
Well, Celinda, you're a rock star, so keep doing your thing. She's very, very good. Okay, so I guess we're on to the next thing, unless anyone else has something.
I have a question real quick before we continue to the attorney. Frank, do we have to take items 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 all in individual items, or can we talk about them individually?
You can take them all at once.
Okay.
They are substantially very similar.
Okay.
And you can take them all at once in terms of public comment, and then the council can, if the council wants to make, if there's some that you'd want to separate in terms of motion, you can, or you can make one omnibus motion. But the key is you want to provide public comment available to all the public for all of them at one time.
Thank you.
Well, we're going on to administrative matters, and this will be, I guess, looking at 8 through 12 for comment. Does anyone up here have questions up here, or questions before we go to public?
Do we have a staff report?
Yeah. So, on item 8?
Well, yeah, you first, but, sorry.
So
Jumping
I'll
stuff.
lead in here. This is an annual process that we go through to determine the assessment levels, the amount of money collected to fund the districts each year. It is a 2-step process. We have this meeting, which is really the notice of intent, and then we have the public hearing, which will be held June 2nd to, adopt the assessment levels. In our time here with, relatively new management at most levels, we have been taking a deeper look at many areas of the organization, and this is one that we have taken a deeper look at. One, based on comments that we've received from the community, but two, just in our going through various items. And so what we want to do a little bit here today is sort of have a reset presentation. We want to walk through the districts, kind of all of them. We want to walk through what the assessments are there to fund, and kind of our process of collecting that assessment and where the monies go. We also will walk through some of the cost increases that we've seen and why some districts over time will see cost increase. We want to give the council and the community full information on this in the first step, and then we can take a second step where you're actually considering and looking at approving the assessment levels.
Appreciate the transparency on this.
So with that, I will turn it over to Celinda, who does have a presentation that we can walk through. And then if there are any questions, comments, concerns, we can walk through other pieces of information or discuss other pieces of information.
Okay, on to the districts. This does have a lot of information in it, so I'm going to go a little slow on this. We have the 5 different areas where we're looking at funding all the maintenance, all the expenses, the cutting of the trees, the trimming of the grass, all these different things. So these are the areas that we're looking at, Fund 220 through 224. Every year we get a nice report from the professionals. So Fund 220, Sunrise. Sunrise is locked in at a maximum assessment of 98.56. We really can't affect this, but we can see where they have unfunded expenses of about $2,000 some odd dollars. They've got a little bit of cash left. So this particular area here of 81 units, the city is paying for some of these expenses when they come up. And in turn, the residents are helping the city pay for some of these expenses as well, instead of the city having to share the burden of the entire district. So you can kind of look at it from both areas. But the maximum assessment is 98.56. We can't increase it. And that's Sunrise.
And I'll just touch on this one. This district was established in 1996, really before Prop 218 went into effect. Prior to Prop 218, it was easier to reestablish a new rate above your maximum. And so it was common practice for districts pre-218 to not have an automatic inflator, because who wants to have an automatic inflator anyway? And so what you're seeing here is in 2025 and 2050, this assessment will be the same because there's no inflator. And as evident in the slide, costs right now, just straight operational costs, are more than the city is collecting in terms of that district, not to mention any of the capital or operating reserves that we would have for bigger items. Sunrise has Dinosaur Park, I believe, and if we ever needed to replace that play structure, we don't have funds generated through this assessment to replace something like that. So I just wanted to make the council aware of that and kind of touch on that. Now, if, and I'm not suggesting anyone does, but it would require a 218 process where you'd have to go out to the residents in that, the property owners in that district, to increase the assessment level. And it'd have to be, I can't remember if it was a positive vote or yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So it's a positive vote.
Weighted according to the different property owners all have a weighted vote, and it requires essentially a majority vote.
So then, meaning not a protest vote, where if you had 50% or more protest, then it would be denied, but it's actually a positive vote. So people would have to affirmatively approve a rate increase there. So I just wanted to talk about that one, which is unique than the other 4 districts, which do have automatic inflators.
Okay, I have a quick question. Was this because that's how it was negotiated originally? Or what, I guess, why do the rest of them have inflators?
I can just say it's pretty standard practice before Prop 218 that you could just increase it. Gotcha. But when Prop 218 went into effect, since those were pre-Prop 218, they didn't have a built-in escalator into the engineer's report in the initial documents. In order to do any increase, even if it's like a CPI, you have to do another 218. So that was kind of the standard practice. Then once the constitutional amendment of Prop 218 went in effect in 1996, then the standard practice was to put the escalators into the LLEDs. And that's That's not unique to Escalon. That's pretty much how it is for a lot of cities. Often the dividing line is it a pre-Prop 218 LLD or a post-Prop 218 LLD, and the post ones have the escalator.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So this slide is unique. This is the only one we have that is like this, and we've identified here that it has no replacement budget, much as we've discussed here a moment ago. So if there was something that needed to be replaced, and that would be a separate matter. We have to figure that one out. So Sunrise, the different one out of the bunch. So let's go on to the next. 221 is Bellaterra. Bellaterra has probably the largest assessment of all of these. And the expenses we can see come in, we're looking at currently, we're collecting 76,000 and the expenses are that 72,000. So they've got a small margin, a good positive margin that they've got there. The replacement budget is $11,000 as determined by Harrison Associates. We have some bark and sidewalk was a yearly cost. So right now, with all these numbers, we have an unfunded maintenance of about $9,100. And what that money would do is in the future, we would have saved this money in order to make replacements. So right now, we can look and see they've got a small positive amount there. We could pay for something that costs $4,200. They also have a reserve balance of $9,200, and this is the difference between the income and the outflows from previous years. So as we start to get higher expenses here, if we don't increase this, we won't have any money, much like Sunrise, for replacements. So that's what we have, just the basic math here, letting us see we've got these 143 parcels. This is what the expenses are, and if we want to have a replacement budget of increased assessment is what's going to have to happen. Or we don't have enough money left over to make replacements. Those are the two choices. Anyone have any questions yet?
And just to kind of elaborate on that point, there are operational costs, annual costs, and we will talk about those in the next slide. And then there are replacement costs. And a common practice is to amortize the replacement costs. So if you can amortize a masonry wall or a fence over how many years we expect that to last, we would collect 1/10 or 1/20th or 1/4 or whatever that year is that we would expect these improvements to last. And so you're building up slowly your kind of capital reserve until such time as you need it. Then you're not having a big rate increase when you need something repaired or replaced, and it doesn't take you as much time. So that has been, I think that is kind of best practice. That doesn't mean every city does it. It doesn't mean we have to do it, but those are the numbers that we were showing you. We have operating costs, your electricity, your landscape services, your water, those types of things, and then you have capital replacement.
And since this had such a large amount of assessment, large amount of expenses, we thought we would expand upon Bellaterra and show some detail here. So between 2020 and 2025, we can show how the utility water costs and the tree expenses, the street lights, the cutting of the grass, all these types of things have increased. And they've increased at a rate that we have not kept up with in order to meet these expenses. We can kind of see where 85% of their total expenses hit in two areas, the park maintenance and the water charges. So it's just expensive to maintain this type of area.
So Linda, can we go back to that one?
Sure. I like this slide.
I'm looking at tree expenses, and it seems fairly on par for the year until we get to 2025. Is there some additional work that needed to be done? I mean, it's almost a 10X, so we'll call it like a 9X, right, on that what?
Right.
What's the reasoning behind that?
Some of this may also be a difference in how particular we are of where these expenses are put. Instead of lumping them in with something else, we've identified them as tree expensive and placed them in 2025 in the proper account. Doing this type of thing lets us see year over year where the expenses are actually held. And also, the trees don't need to be trimmed in the same exact way every year. So very well could have been that we had additional trees I think we had, what, 6 or something?
Well, the really, one of the biggest thing that's happening here, and people in the area see, is this subdivisions, the trees are starting to pop sidewalks. So we're starting to deal with more maintenance issues as the time has gone on. Is one of the reasons why you see increase on the sidewalk and the trees there.
So Linda, can you explain what professional services is and what is government charges?
Professional services is going to be something like the Harrison Associates report. There are professional that's doing this. And that's, I think that is all of that, actually, the 1810. They don't have a whole lot of different things that are being paid for here. The government charges is, say it costs us $100,000 to run the entire city for the quarter. They're going to get a tiny piece of it, and it is limited by the amount of the assessment. So there's a little bit of math that goes into there. You cannot charge more than X. So that's what X is for 2025, is that 4,042. And that's going to help take the city charges as far as having all the staff work on this. Anything you can think of that goes into running the main government offices, they're going to get a tiny piece of it.
So I'm gonna just ask a quick question. We're 2 slides in. And tonight I'm all about ruffling feathers. But attorney, are we legally required to have a consultant prepare the assessments on the LLMD?
I believe you have to do the engineer's report on an annual basis, so I don't know how we do that without a consultant. I've never seen it done without one. Richard, do you want to expand on that? I have a colleague from my firm that's also on this.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. So the Prop 218 requires, and the Landscape and Lighting Act requires, an engineer's report to be signed by a licensed engineer in the state of California. Many times public agencies don't utilize their own public works or engineering. They rely on a consultant. The consultant also does the calculations and offers the benefit of doing the annual enrollment to the county as well. So it's a package deal where the consultant has their engineer sign it and also does the administration on behalf of the district or in the city as well.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to avoid going down a rabbit hole on this, but staff, what is the current contract value that we pay Harrison Associates?
Each district has its own cost, and it is based in part on how much the assessment is. So this one having a larger assessment is going to have a larger cost. So if we're looking at Bellaterra, we have got a cost for them, it's $18.10. And I guess we're seeing right there, it's $18.10.
Yeah, what's the whole enchilada?
I've got 5 of them.
So
I don't have that number. I can get that number for you, though, of course.
It looks like Rick may have that number for us. He
Okay.
just,
I do, yes. It's roughly $7,300 as a total for all 5 districts.
Okay. The only reason, and I'll come back out of the rabbit hole, the only reason I bring this up is because we're 2 slides in and you've presented more on LLDs that I've seen in my entire time on council. And so I'm wondering why the hell we're paying Harrison Associates when you gave us more information right now than what we've seen this entire time.
Not an engineer.
I understand.
I can count all the beans you want, but I am not an engineer.
Okay, sorry, didn't mean to derail your presentation.
No, you're fine. Okay, so this gives us a nice historical, we can kind of see why the expenses have gone up. And we do have details for every one of these invoices, but it gets quite into the weeds. So we'll go on to the next slide here. This is probably the busiest one we have. Again, we're looking at that same time frame. We add 2026 to the end, which is an estimate because we're looking at what we've spent previously, what we expect to spend. And we can kind of see in the peach areas there where in 2021, we had more expenses than we had assessments collected. So less money in, more money out. In the next year, in 2022, we moved to assess more, to collect more money so that we could cover those expenses. So in 2022, this must have come to the council and an increase of $163.44 was initiated at that point in order to cover expenses. I believe since this has not really been looked at in a real fine-tooth type of way for several years, we have just simply missed where the expenses have increased, except for this year when we're looking at everything with a fine-tooth comb. So we're looking here in 2025, We kind of see 23, 24, 25. There's some small dollars there at the bottom. We've got about half of what we're saying we need to increase, and that's just because it was not increased slowly over the previous years. Had we caught it and been a little more nimble, we could have increased that over the years. And this is just simply not enough is being collected to take the actual expenses plus the future things that need to be replaced. So any questions so far? All right.
For full transparency, I talked to the city manager about this, and the way that it was presented to me was that previous budget amounts were set based off of budget line items, not necessarily actual costs.
That is my belief. And that would be perfectly fine if your costs stayed the same. But if your costs are not staying the same, then you have to look at what you're actually spending. And I think that is where the difference has occurred here. We just simply missed a few years when we would have come back to council and asked for a small increase, whereas now it's years down the road and, you need a bigger increase. So, and since I was not here, I really can't speak to exactly what happened. I can only infer based on information that I have. So we'll go on to that. I know this is a really busy slide. It's got a whole lot of really good information in there, but the peach is really the core of it. There was simply expenses that we tried to increase the collection in 2022, and that just didn't happen in the subsequent years. So this slide pretty much shows us the same thing, but we can tell exactly how much we are collecting, what the assessments are. We kind of see the peach area was an operating reserve, which turned into a little blue square, which is the capital replacements. So that's where we have switched over. We've said we're not going to keep the capital reserve where we would pay for bills, but we're going to try to save this money so that we can do replacements later on. And it's not a whole lot of money. So really, this would have to occur for several years so that you could replace a larger ticket item. There is some money in there. If there was a fence, a small piece, there was some concrete work that needed to be done, there'd be enough money to do a small project now. But if the assessment isn't increased, there won't be enough money to fix something larger later.
Just pause real quick. So when we don't have enough money for replacements, the city does and is able to come and, the city subsidizes by coming into the district, or doing those, is able to come and subsidize in those districts and do those replacements. Is that correct?
If it was something that the council decided needed to be replaced, even though there wasn't sufficient funding in the district, I would imagine that is what would happen. We'd have to say, yes, could we please replace this with city funds? And
It's like a general fund.
Yeah, you can always supplement restricted funds with general fund dollars. You can never do the opposite. You can never subsidize general fund with restricted funds.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we'll go on. Let's see what do I have here. We're on to Westwood now. So is there any other questions about Bellaterra? That's the one with the highest increase request. Okay, so Westwood, it's doing pretty good. It's got an assessment. It has some expenses. We're assessing 53, so we're bringing in 53,000. We're expending about 42. We'll call it 42. So they have about $12,000 over their expenses being collected. That's a nice, healthy amount that we're saving. The replacement budget each year is $8,624. So we're meeting that. I would also show on here that they don't have any unfunded maintenance. So unlike Sunrise, this one is doing fine. We have a current assessment of $287.38. The new assessment is $304.10, and the max is $352. Again, we might not have a whole heck of a lot here for a large replacement, but after a few years, it should have a sufficient amount of savings to put the red lines on there, or the walls is probably the more expensive areas, the masonry walls. So not a bad looking slide there. This next one is the estates. And here I'd like to show that the estates combined, we've got 223 and 224. They're doing pretty well as far as there's enough money being collected. We had a very small increase of $14 per parcel per year on 223. And I think on 224, we actually had a decrease of $1. Those could be left alone. Back to 223, they're bringing in 24.9. They're only expending about 15,000. So even if their costs go up percentage-wise, they should have enough to cover. We've got $10,000 over, and that money is just going to sit in the savings and wait to fix a masonry wall or something that's a high-ticket item, a high-dollar item. Very different from our first slide. So the Estates is looking good. Westwood is looking good. And we have the bad, but I think I passed over it, Estates. So this one here, again, we're assessing 6,900. We have minimal expenses on that one. And they've got a nice, healthy reserve balance.
What is a bad benefit assessment?
Benefit assessment, I know. It's just bad. No. So that is what I have here. It's a lot of information on the slides, but we have this online also, so if you want to look at something like this later, see. Are there any questions?
Any questions up here?
Well, just one, and that is, obviously, most people remember the discussion we had earlier this year regarding Bellaterra. And I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but I think it would be prudent to send out mailers, send out notifications, what have you, to the Bellaterra folks way ahead of the public meeting to express, to come to the meeting, to provide input for greater transparency, especially if there's going to be a substantial increase. I mean, I don't necessarily think sending out mailers to the estates, an increase of $14 makes sense. But, you know, if the council decides we're increasing transparency across the board and send mailers to every single LLD, then let's do it. But I mean, $126 is significant, and it goes a little bit of a notification goes a heck of a long way towards this council's goal of greater transparency.
Can I ask one quick question? Is it $126 a month or $126 a year?
And annually, so it's just
Annually.
for the
Okay.
year.
So, let's see. So we're talking about
$10.60 a month.
And yeah, okay. Thank you.
But
You know, it is an increase, I understand that. It
Yeah,
is.
I'm just
Some people might be,
trying to understand it myself.
right?
And I understand, $126, is that really a big amount? Probably not. But this council has made it number one priority besides economic development is greater transparency for the community. And if we're gonna say, well, we need to increase your fees by $126, at least there's an explanation. At least there's an opportunity for the community to provide feedback, input,
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be against that.
and the mailers actually would be paid for by the LLD, so we're not pulling funds from.
I guess my concern would be, are we going to spend money on mailers? We're asking them to pay more money, and we're using their money to ask them to pay more money. You know what I'm saying?
I totally get it.
I guess my concern would be, how much does that cost us to then, I mean, I'd rather see if there's a different way we can inform them potentially, or like a, you know, I guess what I'm.
What's the cost of a postcard stamp?
I guess maybe you could put it on something that already goes to the house or something like that.
Yeah, I think our fully burdened cost is like $1 a mailer out, so.
It's not much then. Okay.
There's 141 units, I think, in this district, so.
Right,
Talking
so-
about $150.
So very little then, okay, gotcha.
Sunrise, we decided it was $1.50 per parcel and added $121.50 that we can't collect. You know, 'cause that's
So if we
max.
did what Councilmember Sean said, it costs $140 to inform them, Is that what we're saying?
That's what we
Ish.
have added to the budget, is $1.50 per parcel to do a mailer, or maybe that's two mailers. I think that's just going to be one,
Okay.
About 80 cents.
yeah.
Yeah, to just inform. Okay, that seems realistic to me. I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but
Well,
that's
it should
how
be
I
for
feel.
everybody.
Yeah, I think-
Yeah, it is. You're right, it is.
For all districts, you're saying, Councilmember? Yeah.
well, you gotta keep it fair, keep it even.
We have that $1.50 per parcel for each home in the district, or each, parcel in the district. This lets me move this around a little bit, but Michelle's gonna help me out with this. This particular item here is for Bellaterra. So if someone did have a question exactly line item by line item, we have varying levels of that we can provide. And so this is also on the website. But we have a summary here showing what the revenues and expenses are, what's being paid for down in the bottom, and that's provided by Harris and Associates. And then we have this detail of every check that's been paid, if someone really wants to see exactly what it is. And we can go down to the actual detail of the invoice if necessary, but.
Mr. Mayor, I'd be really curious to hear from two of our audience members what the last time, because they live in Bellaterra LLD, when the last time they saw this level of reporting for what exactly you're paying for. But we can discuss that under public comment.
If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer, but otherwise, that is what I have.
Any questions at all? Any questions? All right, well,
Can I just see the slide again on the Bellaterra estate?
Sure. Let me know which one it
Not
is.
those ones, the original
Oh, the presentation.
presentation, yeah.
You said this is online as well?
Yes. Under the budget section, we have a few more folders in there, and the presentations are on there now.
On the main page, if you scroll down, there's a link in the middle, it says budgets, and they're located under there.
We also share it on the social media pages.
Of course, yes.
Pro Tem, did you have a question?
I'm forming words in my head.
Oh,
Hold
okay,
on.
no problem.
I'm trying to put words to what I'm
Trying to look at.
math out here. So we're covering, what we have with the assessment is we do cover all expenses, and we do have we are over, like we have reserve fund there, and we're increasing 126 so we can increase that reserve, is that correct?
Correct. So we have the future replacement dollars.
Like if someone drives their car through the wall or something, some unforeseen type of major.
So you get good rain, ground gets soft, whole wall falls over from wind, something of that sort that we're able to replace at that moment and it not have to be an emergency meeting for the city to decide whether we're going to pay for it or not, correct?
And I would imagine if there was some type of accident, then we would have insurance, from whatever party had damaged it. But if this would be more like repair for just because it's gotten old and needs to be replaced. And so that's why this small amount, or relatively small amount per year, will add up to give us enough money to make those big replacements, that hundreds of feet of wall and all that kind of, when it needs to be done.
So we currently have about 4,287 going into that fund, if I'm understanding correctly.
Right.
And now it will be closer to 20,000 with the 94,683, top right. So we'll have about 20,000 per year going into that fund with this increase.
The expectation is 11,000. That only 11,004 is going to go in there. There's 2,000 that goes for bark replacement and sidewalk or tree for each year. So those $2,000 were moved out of this long-term replacement budget and put into the annual expenses.
They're in the assessments already though, right?
They're in the assessment. They're in that assessment.
76,000. Okay, so then.
And that's where it's expected, because those numbers are going to happen every year. They're a smaller amount. It's $1,000 for one thing, $1,000 for the other, and that's what's allowed there. That 11,417 is the future replacements, the larger replacements. So hopefully that would turn into 50 or 60,000, and we'd have it 5 years from now. We'd have 50,000 some odd.
So we're looking at this year's expenses. Expenses will go up too a little bit. So that delta will not be the same as it is today. It'll be smaller.
I'm looking at a 22,000 delta. I mean, that's per year going into the reserve fund balance, if I'm reading this correctly.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, the 4287 and the 11,417, you're getting more like a $15,000 a year. That would be nice, but because the expenses keep going up, we can't really assume that's going to happen each year. I've got that 4287 right now because I'm expecting those expenses not to go above the 72. They're probably going to go to 74 because it's hard to gauge. This is what we've paid all year long. You cut that by 12. I've got a nice straight line number. I can run with that number. But if they decide to, do an extra mow or something like that, I'm going to get a little bit more expense there. Very small margin.
Hypothetical question, because it's probably not going to happen anytime soon, but if you had deflation, would we actually pull that number back? Or would that
We
stay?
could. I mean, maybe they took out a huge piece of lawn and we're not having to water and mow that huge piece of lawn, then yeah, we would say it doesn't cost as much. But right now, as we saw in previous slides, 85% of what they're paying for is water and mowing services, lawn services.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
But in your hypothetical, let's say the cost to maintain the landscaping goes down. I mean, they give us a contract that's less than the prior year.
Yeah.
Yes, we can absolutely reduce the assessment.
I'm not planning on the dollar getting way stronger all of a sudden, but I'm just curious.
Never know.
But the BAD, the bad one, that we are decreasing by $1, correct? I mean, one of them, we are decreasing.
We can certainly decrease it by $1 if it's, if council requests that.
If that's what's happening.
Well, that's what we
That's what we're
show.
requesting on here,
Yeah.
correct?
For
Or
such a
that's what
small
staff is
amount.
requesting today. Okay.
Any other questions for staff?
2 quick questions. To Mr. Collins, how much square footage of sidewalk can you replace at $2,000?
Yeah, that is not even close to what will be happening yearly, but it'll be another assessment next year.
My other question is, so the hypothetical situation that a car hits the wall and there's no insurance to cover that cost. If there is no reserve, how does that work? Does the city pay to have the wall repaired and then the LLD pays the city back? Or does the wall just stay a gaping hole until the funds are recouped in order to make the repair?
We would ask council if we could repair the
And those
wall
funds,
with general funds.
those funds would come from general fund?
The 4287 that's sitting there in the over and short would get eaten up for that repair. Anything they had left over in the reserve fund balance would get transferred to general fund if it costs that much. I mean, I would assume a wall would cost $25,000, so there's 15 of it there. So we would just have to do the best we could to cover the costs, but yeah, any deficit would come from general fund, and that would be at your discretion.
Does the LLD pay the general fund back?
It could be set up that way, yes. But we have the 4287, so you have to see, okay, how much do we have? Is it a year from now and we've got another 9,000 sitting in there? Do we have enough to cover it?
Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, we have our representative online to answer that.
Just to elaborate, yeah, the city is able to advance funds to the LMD, and then in future budgets, the assessments can pay the general fund back. Now, you're going to see that you may be capped how much you can collect each year, but you can extend that over a series of years to essentially pay the city back at some point.
Any other questions? For public comment, we have a couple that live in Belterra. Would you like to?
Public comment for any of the assessment districts.
Sorry, for any of the assessment districts, apologize.
Hi there, Natalie Gallegos. I live on California Street in Belterra, LMD. A couple meetings ago, a few of you were saying it's only $45 last year. What's the big deal? This is now close to $700 a year additional on our property taxes. As you all know, if you're all homeowners here in this county, we get reassessed every year. As our property value goes up, San Joaquin County reassesses up, our property tax goes up. and this assessment's going up. $1,000 a year is a lot of money for a lot of us, especially in our community. There's a lot of retired folks. I'm an original owner. I've lived there since 2004. I've only had my tree trimmed once by the city, one time. Does anybody shop around for maintenance, lawn maintenance, or do we just stick with the same company and pay the increases? I mean, maybe Grover's too expensive. Maybe they're not doing a great job for what they're charging us. There's a lot of, I just see that there's a lot of things that we're being nickel and dimed for all of a sudden because of this engineer report that's added things. The masonry wall. My understanding is that was supposed to always be in there, but now it's been specifically outlined by the engineer's report. Yet nobody's maintained it for the last 20 some odd years. And I've been paying an assessment along with all of my neighbors to supposedly maintain this wall. The chain link fence, I'm reading in here that it's specifically outlined the chain link fence at the park. Never been maintained in the 20 some odd years that I've lived there. And I walked the park about 2 months ago and it's wrecked, like it's damaged. The fence is damaged, not from our lawn people, but from the owner behind us, Murphy Ranch people. Is anybody going after them to fix that, or are we just gonna get added on more money to pay for it when somebody else has damaged essentially our property that we're paying for? I think, and I know that you guys are a new council, so what happened the last 20 years is not your decisions, but these are all things that us residents have endured over the years. We haven't gotten the benefits that we've been paying for. We're the most expensive LMD district, and we get the lawn mowed. Mrs. Bennett has to get after the landscape people to turn sprinklers on because the grass is on. I mean, you shouldn't have to do that. Yet we're paying for this. A lot of money, almost $1,000 a year on top of our property taxes is a lot of money. So I think we're all feeling that. And I know a few months ago when Kurt tried to give his presentation, I don't know how it came across to you guys, but I'm just trying to say that this is a lot of money for us. This is the first time it's ever been broken down like this for us. I've never received notices in the mail to all of these add-on fees and all of these little details and nuances of these engineer reports over the years. And like I said, I'm an original owner, and you guys have seen me here a lot. I pay attention. It's just getting extreme. So if we can cut it down, I mean, we're all pinching pennies here. That's it. Thank you.
Appreciate your input. Would you like to speak to Belterra as well, or
Basically, I,
concur?
yeah.
Okay.
But for further developments, I just want to say, some head up might be, we know we have hardpan in this county, and you keep planting these trees that have the roots over the ground that tear up our sidewalks. So why do you keep putting those trees in that tear up the sidewalk that we have to pay to get repaired when you know we have hardpan?
It's a good question.
So I don't understand why you do things that cost us more money. Yes, I'm after him all the time for water and everything else. Yes.
Wish I was the designer.
Any other questions or anyone else want to say anything from the public? Okay. We'll, bring it back. Anything else want to say up here?
I'll move to adopt Resolution XX25 initiating procedures for the annual levy of assessments and ordering the preparation of engineers' reports for the LLDs noted in agenda items 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
So we'll go on to number 13.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 13 here, consider, as we do with open or expiring terms, or in this first case with item 13, a new committee. So consider setting a date and time to conduct applicant interviews for the newly formed Economic Development Committee. On March 17th, the council set in motion the formation. We have not finalized that. We will come back before you with a resolution to formalize the formation of the committee. But we do have an economic development committee made up of 3 residents, business owners, business executives in and around the community, and then 2 council members. So the item is to set, as per our policy, set a interview time. We do have, as I mentioned, 3 seats open. We did receive 5 applicants, so we have more applicants than the number of chairs open. And so it's been the desire of the council to interview for that. So this item simply seeks a date and a time for those interviews. They are sometimes on the next council meeting, and they will be up front in the council meeting under presentations. But I defer to council.
Anyone have thoughts on this? Dates, times, stuff like that?
What's the agenda look like for the 19th?
So far, it is not too heavy of agenda.
Why not do it the next meeting? If we're all going to be here.
I will not be in attendance to the 19th, meeting on the 19th.
What about the first meeting in June? Or is everybody here for then?
I will not be at the, not that it matters, but I will not be at the first meeting in June. We will have a fill-in or whatever we.
Is there a meeting we'll all be at?
Probably.
Apparently, we need to bring them in right now. Let's just
Call them up.
That would be a Brown Act violation. So no, I know you're joking though.
Hey, lawyer.
Councilmember Engel, are you out that whole week? Or just that particular meeting?
I can check my calendar.
I'm just wondering if we can move, instead of that on a Monday night, move it to Tuesday night or another night of the week that would work for Councilmember Engel's schedule.
Let's not hold a special meeting on my account. I'm okay with you guys moving forward on the 19th if you'd like.
To peek ahead, the next item is setting another date and time for the Planning Commission interviews.
We can do them now.
Yeah, so I'll just speak to that now. We also have 5 applicants for 3 expiring terms. They are not necessarily open seats, but expiring terms. And I will share with you that 1 applicant applied for both the Economic Development Committee and the Planning Commission.
Should do them at the same time.
So there might be some benefit, as City Attorney just mentioned, to doing the interviews at the same time.
I'm up for that. I don't know.
Agree.
Sounds good.
Jeremy, you good with that?
So you said June 2nd, you're not present for?
I am not present June 2nd.
Councilmember Engel's not present the 19th.
Push out to June 16th, and it's quite a ways out.
When do those planning seats expire
They
technically?
expire in June. It's sort of been nebulous on if it's beginning or end of June. I think I've heard some desire from the council to move the Economic Development Committee along sooner rather than later, but again, I mean, we can certainly wait a month.
I'd say let it expire at the end of June and do it in the middle of June. That way we can get it done and everyone can be here.
And that's for both?
Yeah, that's what I would feel, yeah. I don't know.
Just to make sure before, see if there's any public comment on the setting of the applicant interviews.
Any public comment on this topic?
Both the Planning Commission and the EDC.
No? Okay. And nothing online?
Nope.
Okay.
What the heck, I keep making motions all night, I'll just keep on a roll. I'll move to set the applicant interviews for the Economic Development Committee and Planning Commission applicant interviews for, what's that date?
6/16,
June 16th, at the June 16th council meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a first and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And all opposed, say nay. No nays. All right. Okay.
I will just mention, it doesn't affect the vote necessarily. I'll just mention at that same meeting that we interview for the Economic Development Committee, we'll likely bring an item before you to also select the 2 members from the council that will serve on that committee as well.
All righty. I think we're on to council communication, right? Mr. K, or Councilman K, would you like to start?
We really made it to the end of this meeting at 9 o'clock? Not bad. No, I don't have much to say, so I'll keep it to myself.
Okay. On to, who went last time?
I think I did.
Okay, so we'll go to Councilman Engel.
Well, part of my communications were just revealed though. So I will not be in attendance for the May 19th meeting. Due to previous engagements, I will also not be at the May 7th budget meeting. I will make sure to watch it online and gather input.
Thanks for letting us know. All right, we'll go to Councilman Stroman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few things. Regarding the previous motion regarding the LLD, just for clarification, I would like the public to know that just because I made a motion for this doesn't mean that I believe that the assessments should move forward. I would like to see the engineer's report and understand exactly what the engineer is trying to do, and then go from there. So I don't want the public thinking I was giving the $130 increase towards Bellaterra green light just by making the motion. Similar to Councilmember Engel, sorry, Celinda, but I will also not be in attendance at the budget workshop meeting on May 7th due to a family vacation. So nothing against you or nothing against the budget, but my family comes first. Two other quick things. I really appreciated the discussion tonight regarding the apartments at Elizabeth and 120. We might not always agree, but everybody's voice matters. So I appreciate both sides of that situation. And finally, last but certainly not least, for those of you that don't know, this is Teacher and Educator Appreciation Week. And so I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to all of the teachers, administrators, staff members at all of our Escalon schools, and Farmington, all the folks that are tied to Escalon Unified, as well as all of our residents that are school teachers or administrators in other neighboring school districts, in particular, my wife. That's all I have.
Okay. Pro Tem?
So good conversation on the apartments at Elizabeth and 120. I do want to reiterate that it would be nice to have private partners instead of the state coming in and helping us with housing. And where we are in the state of things in the state of California, it's much better to work with a private investor and a private person than the state, and being able to kind of negotiate and have a little bit more control than you do when working with larger government. And so I commend the community for coming out and signing a petition and being involved. And I hope that we continue this trend going forward where the community really does weigh in on what's going on. We've been seeing an influx of people at our meetings and an influx of people out and about and doing things. And we had a great success at Love Escalon. We had great success at our farmers market. And I really love that we are communicating and participating in our government. And I don't see that a whole lot in a lot of other governments or a lot of other communities. And I just love that we are moving in that way forward. So just for the community, you know, there are some open spots for some housing, and housing is something that the state would really like us to move forward on. And like I said, it's better to do with private partners than it is for the state. So, and besides that, thanks for coming out for Love Escalon and the Farmers Market. And I think I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Well, sounds like I'll be the long-winded one. So, a couple things. Happy Cinco de Mayo. I forgot about that. You told me about that. Is it? Oh, never mind.
It's Taco Tuesday, but not
Taco Tuesday.
right? It's
It's
Taco
the
Monday.
We're not going to talk about tacos, right?
Cinco de Mayo.
It's Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, so I was hoping to get some consensus from the dais to go over a few different ideas and have discussion and see if we had anything that came from it moving forward. So it would be discussion, and then potentially from there, depending on what we decided. And so there was a few things I was going to bring up. The first I was hoping to get consensus on was looking at the idea of maybe the parks that we do have, can we potentially put in, instead of having grass in the areas of the backstops, could we potentially put clay there instead? And that way we had practice facilities that could dual for soccer and baseball, because they're in different times of the year. And I was thinking that might be worth having a conversation and seeing if so, what parks would actually be realistic.
So are you talking about down in the water basin?
Potentially places where, you know, there's not much activity in the park. Yeah, so it would be away from play structures, that kind of stuff. I think there's a few spots in town that look like they could be potentially spots we could have practices, you know, because there's such a need for practice while we're still working on field use agreements and potentially other ideas. It would take, or maybe decompress some of the park, some of the main parks use. So that's kind of what I was thinking, is having that conversation to see if that would be something you guys would be interested in looking at or not.
I'll support your conversation.
Okay, appreciate that.
Let me throw this out, Mr. Mayor.
Is this going to be a substantive discussion, or is this about throwing out to not have the discussion? Because right now, we're really limited to, do we want to have the discussion?
Oh, then,
Yeah.
yes, the conversation is worthwhile.
Okay, so we got consensus on that? Okay.
Thanks, Frank.
Appreciate it. Frank, I like your style.
Jerk.
Sorry, I'm trying to keep us in line.
The other, the other is reviewing that C2 zoning to see, you know, because it really does, I think, create a problem, the language in that, so we can prevent maybe having this problem in the future with the using our commercial space for residential. And I was thinking maybe we could have that conversation and then go through pros and cons and figure out if it's the right thing to do or not.
I definitely support that.
Do we decide that at the council, or is that something that we send down to the planning commission and ask them for a rewrite?
I think it would come after the discussion. So like, we have the discussion, we decide, hey, yeah, that's what we kind of want to think about doing, and then maybe having the planning commission then weigh in at that time, and then it would come back to us. But we'd have to have the discussion first.
I think it's worth the discussion that we look at it, but I mean, I don't want to start getting into specific language. That's why we have the planning commission.
Yeah, I guess what I'm looking at is potentially taking that verbiage out that makes it, that, you know, allows for this major flexibility where they're, because these are corridors where, in theory, we want to get sales tax dollars from, and if they start getting, you know, steamrolled by residential, that takes away from our ability to really, you know, drive our own bus, so to speak.
So perhaps a good first step is for council to direct staff to look into the matter and bring some information back prior to a discussion, check into state law and those types of things.
Yeah, would I have support on that?
Yeah, yes. I think your intent is to limit residential in the commercial zone.
Yeah, I think, because if you look at how our
Understood, Mayor.
Sorry, Frank.
No, that your question was in order, but I just want to make sure, I think the direction staff just needs is they got what they need in terms of direction.
Okay. And then I've got two more things, and I'll get out of your hair. I think that...
That's too much. Good job, sorry.
5 minutes is up, Mr. Mayor. 5 minutes is up.
You're a lawyer, not a judge.
I could have a sense of humor, too.
Frank is attacking everybody tonight, so I'm glad that you get this.
Mr. Frank. So would be things that were brought up by the Bellaterra group here. Maybe looking into an RFP on the Grover, or, you know, looking to see if we can get the best price for them in that area, and people that are going to actually show up, and, you know, we're not dealing with dead grass and that kind of stuff. So,
absolutely, I will support that.
Does that contract expire? Is there a contract length on Grover or on those landscapers?
Probably termination.
Yeah, there's a term and there's termination clauses for sure, but yeah, there's a term.
Usually with those agreements, I haven't seen that one specifically, but you try to build in some flexibility that you can terminate for convenience. So even if there is a term, doesn't mean like on 30 days notice or something. Yep. So there should be flexibility is what I'm saying.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure it's competitive and they're actually doing what they're saying they're doing, which it doesn't sound like, so.
Understood.
All right.
Don't get into discussion. Frank will attack you.
Sorry, Frank. So we have.
I think there was a consensus. We saw a few heads not heads.
Okay. And the last thing would be the trees, either figuring out a tree list or a tree approach that would prevent us from having to, Public Works to have to constantly deal with these long-term. You know, there's got to be a way to either plant the tree in a way that allows the taproot to go where it's supposed to go, or maybe a different type of tree, like a list of trees that are not going to constantly pull up the concrete and then cost us money and, you know, all that good stuff. And so I was thinking that having that discussion would be potentially fruitful.
I guess, don't we have an approved tree list already?
Yes.
They don't seem like good trees.
So, yeah, so how is this happening?
So maybe the idea is just to come back with a report and information, and then the council can give direction if they want us to tweak that. Maybe that's a better first step.
Well, is this, one other thing I was just going to ask, could you ask an arborist or someone to actually look at the list and, you know, who, because I don't know who actually put that list together before.
Probably Frank.
You know.
Could be from 1905 when the sidewalks were dirt.
Yeah. It's hard.
From the government, just looking at cost.
Yeah, free trees or something.
Yeah.
But Justin's saying, he's not saying anything, he's just remaining silent, so that should tell us something.
good or bad?
I think he's trying to end the meeting.
Happy Cinco de Mayo.
But it seems like there's consensus to at least bring back, as an initial first step, a report and information, and then the council can provide direction further from there.
And that's all I have for tonight. Thank you for being patient, and have a good rest of your evening.
That's it? I really thought you had at least one more in you.
Frank was giving them there.